Well, we're back again, and the usual notice is if you go look at the YouTube video, look down below in the description. We got links to various things. We've got this video is indexed. We've got the multi-year composite index of everything. Anyway, I've got an old ROS agriculture index that I was creating. And I think there's a link out to the Slack channel and a link to our YouTube page. So all that stuff, if you look under there, and then that gets copied to the big index, so you can find the stuff there also if you want to go track it down there. So let's see, what did I do this week? Last week I was saying that I had taken my AC power monitor and hooked it up to my refrigerator, and I was showing plots of that. And right offhand, I don't remember. I guess you have to go back and look at last week because I don't have I don't have those at my fingertips right now. And I was thinking, well, it was doing some cute stuff, and we had some extra big power usage in there. And Al says, "Oh, it's probably your defrost cycle." Oh, of course, that's what that is. And I thought, well, it'd be nice to know what the temperature is doing this whole time. So years ago, I'd done a temperature monitoring project with one of the original Raspberry Pis, what they just called a Raspberry Pi B, which technically is a 1B, but they called it an A and a B when they first came out. So I had one of those that I did several years ago. I think the dates on the files are like 2017 and 2018. And it ran for like 2 years straight, logging outdoor temperature and indoor temperature and my furnace running or not. And so I took that and just put the card back in it and hooked the sensors up and turned it on. Sure enough, it still runs and was logging stuff. And I thought, well, let's see, was it that one I used? I think it's that one I used. I set that up next to my refrigerator and put a sensor in the freezer, one in the refrigerator, one on the countertop, and let it run overnight. And I thought, well, yeah, I'll look at it and see if there's anything interesting going on. And if not, there's really no point, wasting my time with it. And if it is something funny going on, what I could do is I could merge those two programs together. So I get all this AC data and the temperatures at the same time in one file and go plot that and see what it's doing. And so I ran it, turned it on, and let's see, share screen, desktop one. And this probably isn't going to show up as well as I'd prefer, but that's just the way it goes. So I assume you can see that. So anyway, there's the software is set up so it builds a file name based on the date. So whatever day it is, it builds a file name with the month and the year and the day. And then what I do, I just create that file name once, and every time I take a reading, so this would go out every 10 seconds and read all three devices, all three temperature sensors. Then it would open the file, write those out as a single line, and then close the file, and then wait 10 seconds to do the whole thing over again. And the reason you open the file and close the file, so if anything crashes on you, it doesn't hose up your directory and you lose everything. I suppose if it crashed completely, I could still lose everything. But anyway, that's how that was working. And then when it gets to midnight, since it builds the file name based on the date, it just automatically creates another file. So every day I get one 24-hour file of whatever I'm doing. So I started this up and hadn't really thought about that. And I started up, went to bed, got up the next morning and looked at it. And I got this plot. This at the beginning, here's when I first stuck the sensors in and turned them on. So they're pulling down to the operating temperature. And out of the end here, I thought, well, they're all looking pretty flat. So there's really nothing interesting to see anyway. So I don't have to waste my time trying to combine these programs together. Then I realized, oh, there's a second file there. So I moved on to the next one. And how come I can't get that? Let me just close this one. And the next one looked like this. So this started at midnight, and this is 9:30 in the morning when I got up and checked it. And to use a technical term, I thought, holy shit, what is this crap? My refrigerator shouldn't be doing this. And I looked at that and said, there's two major cycles that I caught. I started to do a third one of those cycles, whatever that is. And this is all in centigrade here. So this let's see, I've got the data here. I just had that. Where would I have put that? I just had it on the screen here. This one? No, that's something else. This one. There we go. So we look at this one, and I don't think, can I make this bigger? Plus, no, but I can come up here under.
It's legible now.
So anyway, if we look at the plot down here, it said so this top one happens to be the minus 26. So the top one is the freezer. So on this plot down here, the bottom line down here gets down to minus 26 degrees, which is also minus 14.8 Fahrenheit. So it's pretty darn cold. And then at the peak up here, it was hitting minus 9.56 degrees centigrade, which happens to be 14.78 degrees Fahrenheit. And you won't believe how long I wasted on this trying to figure out these calculations are right. If I put in minus 26 or minus 9, I'm always getting 14.8 out of it. And I thought, well, that can't be. And then I realized one is a positive 14.8 and one's a negative 14.8. So it's just coincidental they both come out to look like the same number. So anyway, that's what the freezer is doing. It's going ranging between those values. And then the refrigerator is going from 1.75 C, which is 35.5 F. So technically that goes above the freezing point for just a slight amount of time. And then it gets down to 44 or 6.8 C and 44 degrees Fahrenheit is what the range on that is. So technically, yes, it does go above the, I prefer the refrigerator to never go above 40, but 44 for a short amount of time. This was probably sampling at 10-second samples on this one here. And so I decided that. And then on the freezer never gets above, what was the freezer? Well, it gets up to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's still, way below the freezing point. So I decided it, number one, it's doing something funny. I don't know what's happening, but again, maybe I don't care too much. But I thought, well, okay, now that I'm seeing this, I should go merge those two programs together and run it again so I can see, what is the power and the everything doing? Is the compressor running here or what? So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I got that far, and that'll be my next step. It turns out I can run. Oh, the other story is that I had that old Raspberry Pi. I thought, well, do I want to try to get this newer stuff to run on that? And I decided it doesn't have the built-in Wi-Fi. It's only got 2 USB ports. And finally, I pulled out my box of Raspberry Pis, and it turns out I have 2 of the original Pi Bs. I have one of the 1B Plus, which is basically the original one just repackaged in the modern form factor. And I see I've got in my box, I've got 2 Raspberry Pi 2s, and there's another one bolted to my Raspberry Pi robot. So I've got 3 of those, and I had 3 Raspberry Pi 3s in my box. And then I've also got a 4 kicking around that I didn't want to use because it's modern enough. I don't want to, dedicate it to something like that. So I grabbed a Pi 3 and went and loaded a new flash card for it. And last week Bob told us, "Oh, be careful because it'll load the newest stuff which you don't want." So that saved me some time right there. I was able to click on it and say, "No, give me the 32-bit version." Well, I think they call it the legacy version because I'm not going to go down that path. Why I object to legacy? But anyway, they said, "Here's the legacy 32-bit version that'll run on anything." So I loaded that up, and it turns out if I just get the GitHub for the AC power monitoring and run that seems to work just like it does on the laptop. And I took my code from the old stuff from the old Raspberry Pi and tried to run that. And what always amazes me on Python, you'll try to run it, it comes up and says, "Oh, your spaces and tabs are inconsistent." I'm thinking, well, why didn't you tell me that for 10 years while it was wrong? But now here I loaded on some new Python and it's complaining. So I had to go fix all those. And there might have been, I had to change, I had put the Python 3 in the what do you call it, the shebang at the top, the first line of your program. I had to change from Python to Python 3. Then everything seemed to be happy. So those two would run independently, and each one will create its own log file. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could run them at the same time. So sure enough, I can. I can just start them both up. It creates 2 log files. And if I start them at the same time, it would be more or less synchronized together. So I could have set this up and let it run, and then, basically done the same thing and probably seen, what it was doing during those times. And that might have told me enough of what I want to know. Otherwise, I'll just take my temperature monitoring, which is like 2 or 3 lines of code, says grab this number and scale it, and then it's ready to output. Just find the place in the Python program to stick that in, so it just adds those on to the values. So I'll probably get around to that after things calm down. the apartment people said they're going to come inspect sometime in the next week. So that may set me back, and I may just move some more stuff around so it doesn't look like I just moved in. I already did my living room and got rid of my big wall of boxes that I thought was kitchen stuff. I packed that away and just squirreled it away in various places. So that's kind of where my life's at right now. I've got that going on. Oh, and the beginning of the week I had water backing up in my bathtub, and that turned out to be some kind of a fiasco. But after waiting a day of not knowing what's going to happen, some guy came in and played with it all damn day and finally said, "Oh, I can't fix it. We're going to have to call somebody else in." And he'll either be in later today or tomorrow. Well, he didn't show up later that day, and again, nobody was talking to me, so I had no messages. So the next morning, the caretaker and a real professional plumber showed up, and he came in and poked at it and beat on it for a while, and finally got it straightened out. I was okay, you're all set. You can have no more problems with it. I thought, well, he could have washed it out a little better, but he didn't. But overnight, I haven't had any more problems with it happening. So again, that's where my life is between that kind of stuff, and now they're going to inspect. So I was trying to clean stuff up, and I was playing with my Raspberry Pi. And the other thing is when I moved in on my lease, they sprung this lease on me. They said, "Oh, you're all set, and we realize you're so desperate you'll do anything. So just sign all this paperwork, and we'll just send you the lease and immediately send it back." So they sent me this thing's like 26 pages long and all kinds of embarrassing crap in there. And one of them says, "You cannot use extension cords. You cannot use these cute little wall outlets that they give you multiple outlets." I thought, well, at this point, I had to have a place to live. So I said, okay, fine. So of course, just like everyone else, I started using extension cords. And I went through last night, made sure I hid all my extension cords and all my little adapters and make sure my AC power monitoring is not out. So we'll see how this goes. I have no idea what they're even looking for, but so I'm about to find that out, and hopefully within the next week I'll find out what that is, and they'll go away and leave me alone again. So there's one more issue on that, but I won't go into that. So that's all I have to say, I think. So I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Yeah.
Back on your plot, what was the time period on that? Where you got the two spikes on the, I'll call them spikes on the freezer side?
The whole side, the
Yeah.
entire time, that was about 9.5 hours.
Hmm.
So sometime in the
Interesting.
middle of the night, it decided to do that, and just in the morning, then as I was getting up, it looked like it was going to start that again. If I go back here,
For what it's worth, I had a appliance repair guy tell me one time the freezer should be at 0 Fahrenheit, and I think he was suggesting the refrigerator should be at 35, but that's just an appliance repair guy. I'm sure it's all personal preference.
well, my thought is you want to keep it colder than 32, because at 32 degrees Fahrenheit in your freezer, that's right at the freezing point. It's going to be trying to switch back and forth between frozen and not frozen. So
No, I
they
meant
always,
freezer 0 degrees Fahrenheit.
yeah.
So that's well below freezing.
Well, you were talking about preferences. Yeah, I can understand 0, but then when they tell you, like at the grocery stores, they say your ice cream must be kept at minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit to keep it frozen solid.
Seriously? I've
And
never heard that.
that I don't remember. It might say it right on the package, but it doesn't do any good, because they'll bring out a big pallet of ice cream, sit in the hallway or sit in the aisle, let it sit there for 6 hours before they put it back in the container. So anyway, so that's not really a big deal there. So anyway, I was going
And
by that if you run it at minus 10, it's frozen. And right now, even with it cycling, it was getting up. It was still below the freezing point, because it was at what, no, it got up to positive 14.78 degrees. And so freezing is at the 32 degree mark. So my freezer is definitely cold enough all the time. And the refrigerator,
out of curiosity, what temperature probes did you use?
it's those Dallas one wire sensors. It's the one that's got the big long black cable, and that's got like a aluminum or some kind of metal thing that goes over the sensor, and then that's got a heat shrink on it. So I think they claim they're waterproof. They maybe say they're water
And then you
resistant.
just close the door
Yeah,
around
I
the
just,
wires.
yeah, I just laid the thing on the countertop and put the two wires and shut the door on it. Thought that's close enough for to tell me it's going to work or not.
Nice.
If I had to, I'd get some either like flat cable, like ribbon cable, which would close better, or just get some wire wrap wire. So it's like 30 gauge wire, and make about three twisted pair and put that in. That would be another way to do it. But at that point, I just wanted to find out, if, is it going to work at all, and is it going to tell me anything useful? It looks like it did tell me something useful, so now I got to move on to the next step,
Neat.
and I'll run it at least once, like overnight or a couple of days, with monitoring all the AC power and the temperatures, just to see what it's doing, and then then I may decide to, make something that fits a little better and the door closes on a little better. Right now, that's just where I want to go with it.
Nice. Well, on my end, let's see. Couple of posts to Slack. Uh, one of the posts was just me cycling through. Oh, God, daggone menus not behaving well. Um, I was just confirming for myself that I could control the lights and had printed a new bottom, still using the Arduino. Basically, just another step of confirming I can control this thing underneath there is, can't see it very well, but are five of those LED drivers, and in the middle is the 16 channel PWM driver. Moving on from that, making it a little bit more permanent. I've got 6 wires here. Um, two are 12-volt power, and the other 4 are ground and VCC and SDA and SCL4. The I2 squared, wired that up with Ethernet wire, took Molex Junior connectors so that I can disconnect and reconnect these things. Use some more Ethernet cable and connected it up over here. And then got that same code, well, similar code running on the RPi on Python versus Arduino. And then started thinking through, which was more complicated than I thought it would be, at least for my small brain. How did I actually want to use these? I had originally thought, oh, when I lose fix, I'm gonna do something, and when I'm in autonomous mode, I'm gonna do something, and um, to then I said, well, what am I gonna do with the rest of these lights? So this is sort of the normal boot sequence where, first it gets power, there's no RTK, then the NRF radios will start talking, then GPS data will start coming in, and I'll make sure that my radio on the tractor is talking to the handheld radio control, and I'll show when I'm confirmed that I'm getting RTCM correction data and then getting fixed, and then when I'm in autonomous mode. So between fading the light and blinking it at a different rate, or having it off or having it on, this is my current thinking. Now what I need to go do is figure out where I get the data in order to interrogate these states and actually turn the lights on and off based on something like this. So If anybody has any input about what events to track or suggestions on how to use these lights, I'm all ears, but that's what I'm thinking at the moment.
Hey, Al,
Yeah.
how much latency time over your LoRa radios?
Uh, well, I had LoRa,
Oh, okay.
but now I'm using these NRF 24s.
Oh,
So they're slightly different. See if I have a picture of one. Um, they sort of look like this.
oh, okay.
Um, and I'm running them, if my recollection is right, I got it up to, I'm like at 5 hertz, I think. So five times a second or 10 times a second with, I think, 25 bytes of data.
Okay.
LoRa, I had LoRa radios before, and I don't, it's probably my poor programming ability, but I could only get um, like 3 hertz or half or 2 hertz. So LoRa was slower for me than these NRFs. Um, there's lots of YouTube channels out about LoRa. You can go, I don't know, 100 kilometers or something, but these are not going to go that, but they would go 300 meters or a thousand-ish feet for me. So
Okay.
that was what I had in my head. I want to go 1,000 feet with 20, 25 bytes of data at 5 hertz. And these $5 NRF 24L01 deals are doing it for me.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
The reason I had my Miro board up is I was just putting in some notes about, I started with this light. I got these 1 watt LEDs. I'm anxious to see how Jeff does with, are yours 5 or 10 watt LEDs, Jeff?
The well, let's see. I got one just like this, but it's got an extra white LED in it. So they're 1 watt LEDs on that. And then I've got, when I ordered my orange ones originally, it was one that looked like this, but just had a single orange LED. And I ordered the 1 watt, but they sent me a 3 watt. And it looks like the difference is you can put twice as much current through a 3 watt LED. And I guess probably if you go look at the specs, it'll say it's going to be brighter at that amount.
Yeah.
So basically you could just interchange, the 1 watt and the 3 watt. And so I don't know if a 3 watt one will be just as bright at 1 watt as a 1 watt one is. So I've never really looked into that. And then I've got one kicking around. It's a 10 watt. It's just a white. And so I got various things kicking around. But what I'm going to do, my first one had basically an RGB that had the 1 watt resistors or the 1 watt LEDs, and then I had a separate orange LED. So I had the two of them on there, and they, as I say, if I need to pop the thing open and see what I've got on for current control resistors, and then look at the code and see what the PWM set at, so I can probably get more out of what I've got right now. But I'm just gonna take this one, the one that looks like your LED there, but it's got an extra white one in there, so it takes 8 leads to run the thing. And I'll probably put my orange one back on. I'll just put those back on a box like I had before, and just use these 350, either the 350 milliamp drivers or the 700 milliamp, depending on how I wire stuff in series and parallel. So anyway, that's where I'm going to go on that. Just have set it up so the driver can drive that at full power, and then just use the PWM to control the intensity and flashing and all that.
And so that's my LED. That's my driver. Part of the reason I asked is because if this isn't beefy enough, I guess I would have to change the LED and the driver, right, in order to push more current, because
Yes, I would say it's true.
this is 300 milliamp, I think, plus my 16 channel PWM. What that looks like from a circuit standpoint is 12 volts going in, the LED over here, and instead of a switch, I've got the PWM controlling the dimmer pin on there. So that's about what I've gotten up to.
So back on your chart, you're showing your different colors and different patterns for different situations.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me get back there. Here.
You might want to consider, say, on your red to make that as an official error, whereas you've got number 1.2 there. It says if you don't have any Wi-Fi connection, it's blinking red. Well, you could have, just pick a different color. So you could have, leave the red for things like e-stop, or something in your thing actually went bad. Save the red for that, and you can just pick another color and say for the Wi-Fi stuff, because you can actually have two of these. You can flash them at the same time or alternate between two colors or whatever. But just I personally would just keep red as an actual error, and the whole thing with the GPS, whether it's RTK or no data at all, or you don't have Wi-Fi connection, those are not technically a major error, but you can just have a different color, just assign it to a different color there to just give you more of an indication. Like, say, all the way through on the GPS, you can have it say if it's not on at all, then you're not getting correction data or something. Or you could have it say, pick so that there is a color, and it says, so if you're not getting correction data, you could either do some flashing or pick a certain color. And then with your Wi-Fi stuff, the same kind of thing, where we have decent Wi-Fi or not, again, you could assign all that sort of radio and GPS all on one color, just have it do different things. Or you can have one color for GPS, one for all your communication stuff. So just in general, but the bottom line is, if it makes sense to you, you go ahead and do that. So you can make them do anything you want.
Well, I definitely think if I don't have radio, I mean, I like your idea that red means, bad. And 99% of the time I'm going to get a yellow while it's booting up a little bit, and 5 or 10 seconds later I'm going to get this yellow blinking, and hopefully 40 seconds later I'm going to get RTK fix. So I was thinking, if I was out in the field and I exceeded, say, that 1,000 feet, and I lose NRF 24 radio, I mean, in my mind, I want my red to be doing something, because I'm in a bad state if I get out of, because I can't do e-stop. To me, that's why it's critical, is if I can't do e-stop, then I want the red thing blinking. At least that was my logic.
And if you're out of range, will it do an e-stop on its own? Will it everything come to a stop?
Oh, with Bob's help programming, I can do anything.
Jeez.
I don't think at the moment it does that. But that would be the logical thing to build into it. I have to go back and look at my teensy code.
Yeah, because when we first started the ROS agriculture stuff, and I had my platform, I kept saying, set up your e-stop. So you have to send it a permissive signal that says you are allowed to run, as opposed to having one set up. You say, oh, I'm going to push the button and tell it to stop, because that is not safe if you do that. As you see, if you get out of range, now you're screwed, because you don't. But I guess if you're out of range and you're going to flash your red LED, it should also, this thing should come to a stop. And that, if you do it that way, that takes care of several things. Number one, if you're out of range, it'll shut down. If your batteries go dead, it'll shut down. If you turn off your transmitter, your remote control transmitter, it'll stop. And there's various other things that could happen that You know, you're trying to get around all that stuff. So anything, if you're not saying, okay, 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 it's oh, I just lost my okay signal, and you want it to stop and shut down. And yeah, as you say, you can flash lights or whatever you want to do on it at that point.
Yeah, I'd have to go back. The honest answer is I think I have about a 70% confidence factor that um, my code has a check for do I have a good radio signal? But if I'm in auto, I think anyway, I'll look at the code later, but I think check mode update. I don't remember. This is bottom line. I'll have to check.
And I
Definitely.
had one more thing I was going to say about it, but of course I forgot as I started rambling on there what it was.
Let me share it again and see if it triggers your comment. So most of the time, the boot up sequence is going to be, I got a yellow light to show that it's, the system is on and it's thinking about it. Then I'm going to blink a little bit to show I've got GPS data. I'm going to blink a little bit to show that I've got radio communication with my radio control. I'm going to do a slow fade green to show corrections coming in. And then I'm going to blink green to say, hey, you got RTK fixed, you're good to go. Then if I put it in auto mode, it's going to go solid on. If I lose RTK, then the blue is going to blink saying, hey, you're trying to run a mission, but you lost RTK. And at that point, I'm going to look at the camera and take over manual control and drive it. That's at least my thinking.
I remember what I was going to say. On mine, I got my flashing beacon on the top where I've got the colors like you have here, but then I've also got that LED status strip across the back, which you can't see from a long distance, but it gives you the more information on each device. So for instance, my first LED on the status strip, I've assigned to the first GPS. So that way you can go through, by putting different colors on that, you can say, well, I'm not talking to the GPS at all, so that light would be off if you're talking to it, and then you have a sequence of colors that would tell you, are we getting any fix? Is the GPS running and give us like just a simple 3D fix, or are we getting a float type fix, or are we getting a RTK fix? So based on that, just that one LED by the different colors on that, if you're standing close enough, you can see that and tell what condition that's in. And then the second GPS has its own LED with the same types of colors. And then my IMUs where they had different kind of status that come out of those. So I just pick a certain device, and then based on the color of the LED that's assigned to that, you can have a little chart or something. You say, oh well, that's good. If you got greens across the board, that says both my GPSs are running and both of my IMUs are running, and anything else I want to put in between there, because I got a total of six LEDs there. And then to go along with that, you can have the flashing beacon. Normally mine's going to be orange if I'm driving around a manual, or blue if I'm driving an automatic. And then if I have hit an e-stop, it turns to red and then flashes at some rate. You can have, basically you can turn off the blue or the orange saying everything's running just fine, and either, turn on a different color. And that way you'd have to walk up and look at the little status strip to see who's complaining and know what to do about it beyond that. So that, it's got two different kinds of information that are showing up on that. And if you really wanted to, instead of getting the addressable LED status strip, put on these RGB LEDs, just figure how many you want, and then put an LED and a driver on it. And then you have to, talk to it like you're doing your beacon right now. But basically those, if those are on the back of the thing, pointed out, then you'd be able to see those from at least as far away as your beacon, and probably even further if you're looking, straight into the thing. So you could just put on more LEDs just to, just beyond your beacon on top, so you can tell what the main thing is. You can have these other ones that light up, just telling you other, fun facts about, because there the concept of the addressable LED, where you got red, green, and blue. And if you want to mix the colors, you can, but you got those base colors. If you just put one of the 1 watt RGB LEDs on there, that way, it takes more circuitry, more screwing around to do that, but you could do the same thing and they would be bright enough to see, looking straight into it like that. As long as you're on the side where the LEDs are pointing out. So if the LEDs are pointing to the back, you have to be behind it to see those. And that's why on mine, I put that square box and put LEDs. I got a square box, so they're some pointed this way, some pointed this way, some pointed this way, and some pointed this way. So no matter where you are around the thing, I can see those, but that takes four times as many parts for everything to do that. So that's just some more tidbits to consider. And in fact, it would be real nice if they'd sell that little 1 watt LED and have it so it works like the addressable LEDs. And I may have found something similar to that at one point, but I don't know if somebody actually sells that particular thing. That'd be real handy. You just get those,
Sure would.
strap them down and talk to them like you do the LED strips. They just have a lot more power.
Yeah, using the 16 channel servo thing is making it easier, along with just the LED driver. So
Yeah.
trying to do all those resistors and stuff were a pain in the butt. That's it for me.
Okay.
About all I got done this week is making little brackets. And I'll see if I can get them called up here. Yep. What you're seeing in the foreground is 1 inch angle, and those screws are used for fastening lath. When you
Bob, if you're sharing something, I'm not seeing it. And Jeff's on mute.
Okay. Huh. Well, let's do this. Okay. Let's see if I can turn the camera around without losing anything. There we go. My goal was to be able to remove the batteries relatively easy and quickly. So I just made a frame around the bottom and to hold them in place. And then further stabilize the batteries, I just put an eye hook in the floor, and I'll be stretching short bungee cords over the top of them. And since all the switches have to come off the batteries, now I have to come back and pretty much put everything back in this space. And all the switches will have to be fastened down onto the white deck and then probably fed back up to the terminal strips. The power and signal will probably go up along this post, up, and then up here it comes into my two step downs, then over, and then into the pie. And that's about all I've got done this week. Yes.
How do you plan on putting connectors between your batteries and the rest of the system? You're just going to use a little spade that you stick onto the battery, so every time you go to do it, you have to put the two connectors on there, or are you going to put another connector, a polarized connector somewhere else?
I was thinking of using this thing, which is one of those lock nut deals where the spade would be on the battery all the time. Then I just lift up one of those lock nuts, depending on which way, and just disconnect it real quick.
Okay. Because my point was, people will think I can put that battery on and it's got those two spade connectors on it. So every time I put it on, I'll just put it on and hook those spade connectors back up. But I guarantee you, sometime you're gonna hook those up backwards because you just get in the habit of just putting stuff on and you're not paying attention. And that way, if you had something where, say you've got a red wire that's always on the red connector and a black wire that's always on the black connector,
Yeah.
and that way you're better off. So if you had, bring those out to some kind of connector you can then take apart. So either I'm not sure how well those are going to work out for you, doing that multiple times, or if you
Yeah.
get like a Molex connector or something that's polarized and
I think I'll eventually go to Molex, but I pretty much shot my budget this month, replacing my past mistake.
yeah.
So
I thought I had one more comment on that, but again, I don't make notes as I think of these things. So no, I can't think of what it was.
Don't beat up on yourself about what you got done, Bob. Sometimes I tell myself if I just get one screw in or one wire soldered, that's all I need. Just make a little progress every day.
We had one guy in a robot group and he was really busy. He had a family, he had a job, and had wanted to play with the robots. He just made a rule that says he's going to set aside 15 minutes every day and do something. So he'd have this time period set aside. So, like I said, if he's going to put connectors on his batteries, he could get that done in his 15 minutes. Then next day he would have something. So, there's always times, well, oh gee, I've got vacation today. You got a whole day you can do on it, but just for a just a management technique, he just said, oh, I'll just every day I'm going to do at least 15 minutes on this stuff.
I like that.
yeah. Well, that's all I got.
Okay.
I'm all
Anything
set.
else?
I'm all
Okay.
set.
Okay, let's see if I can do this right this time.